Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever felt that your IELTS essay has good ideas but somehow it doesn't sound smooth or well organized? If yes, you are not alone. Many students know what they want to say but they struggle to connect their ideas effectively. That's where connective words come in. Connective words, also known as linking word, help us connect sentences and ideas in a clear and logical way. They make our writing easier to read and help the examiner follow our thoughts from one point to the next. In fact, using connective words correctly can improve the coherence and cohesion of your essay, which is one of the key criteria in the IELTS writing test. In today's video, we will look at some of the most commonly used connective words and phrases for IELTS writing. I'll explain what they mean, when to use them, and show you practical examples so that you can start using them confidently in your own essays. So whether you are aiming for band 7, band 8 or even higher, this lesson will help you make your writing more organized, natural and effective. Let's get started. Now let's look at group 1, sequencing and listening connectives. These are linking words that help us put our ideas in a clear and a logical order. Think of them as a signpost that guide the reader through your writing. When you are presenting several points, reason or steps, sequencing connectives make your writing more organized and easier to follow. Some common sequencing and listing connectives are to begin with, first of all, in the first place, firstly, secondly, thirdly, first, next, then, after that, finally, subsequently, thereafter, last but not the least. Let's see how they work in a sentence. First of all, government should invest more in public transport. Next, they should encourage people to use environmentally friendly vehicles. Finally, stricter pollution regulation should be introduced. Notice how the word first of all, next and finally help us understand the order of the ideas. Without these connectives, the paragraph would feel less organized. In IELTS writing, these connectives are especially useful when you are giving multiple reasons, explaining a process, or presenting a series of arguments. A quick tip: try to use a variety of sequencing words instead of always writing firstly and secondly. You can also use expression like to begin with, next or last but not the least to make your writing sound more natural and sophisticated. Now let's move to the group 2, reinforcing. These connectives are used when you want to add more information to an idea and make your argument stronger. They help you introduce extra reasons, supporting points or evidence. In simple terms, when you have already made a point and want to say something more than supports it, you can use reinforcing connectives. Some common reinforcing connectives are also, besides, furthermore, in addition, moreover, what's more, additionally. Let's look at the example. Many people prefer online learning because it is flexible. Furthermore, it allows students to access educational resources from anywhere in the world. Here the first sentence gives one reason why people like online learning. The word furthermore introduces another reason, making an argument stronger. You can also use words like moreover, in addition, or additionally in a similar way. These connectives are very useful in IELTS writing because higher band essay often develop ideas fully by adding relevant supporting points. Instead of writing only one reason, you can use reinforcing connectives to provide extra explanations and evidence. A useful tip is to avoid repeating words also too often. Try using alternative such as furthermore, moreover, or in addition to make your writing sound more varied and academic. Next is equating. These connectives are used to show that two ideas, situation, or examples are similar. In other words, they help us compare things and highlight similarities between them. One, when one point is similar to another, equating connectives help us connect those ideas smoothly and clearly. Some common equating connectives are similarly, likewise, in the same way, equally, correspondingly. Let's look at the example. Regular exercise improve physical health. Similarly, maintaining a balanced diet contributes to overall well-being. In this example, the word similarly show that the second idea is related to the first one in the similar way. Both exercise and healthy diet help people stay healthy. We could also replace similarly with likewise and the meaning would remain almost the same. These connectives are useful in IELTS writing when you want to compare ideas, provide supporting example or show that two situations having something in common. A useful tip is to use equating connectives only when the ideas are genuinely similar. This will make your writing more logical, coherent, and easier to examiner to follow. Next is summarizing connectives. These connectives are useful when you want to bring your ideas together and present a final thought or conclusion. They tell the reader that you are finished your decision and summarizing the main point. In IELTS writing, summarizing connectives are most commonly used in the conclusion paragraph of an essay. Some commonly summarizing connectives are in conclusion, to conclude, in summary, to sum up, overall, in brief, on the whole. Let's look at the example. In conclusion, while technology has created some challenges, its benefits to education, communication, and businesses are far greater. Here, the phrase in conclusion immediately tells the reader that the writer is about to give a final opinion based on the point discussed earlier. You can also use alternatives such as to sum up, in summary, or overall to introduce your concluding statement. These connectives are important because they help your writing feel complete and well organized. They also make it easier for examiner to identify your final position on the topic. One useful tip is to avoid introducing completely new ideas in your conclusion, instead using summarizing connectives to briefly restate your main points and reinforce your overall opinion. Now let's look at the group 5, referring and giving example connectives. These connectives are used when you want to give examples or explain an idea in more detail. They help the reader understand exactly what you mean by providing specific information or illustration. In IELTS writing, examples are very important because they make your argument stronger and more convincing. Some common referring connectives are, for example, for instance, in particular, particularly, such as, that is to say, namely. Let's look at an example. Many countries are investing in renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power. For example, several European nations have significantly increased their use of clean energy in recent years. Here, the phrase such as introduce specific type of renewable energy, while for example provide a real world illustration to support the idea. These connectives help readers see exactly what you are talking about rather than relying on general statement. Using this example can improve the quality of your arguments and demonstrate a deeper understanding of the topic. Whenever possible, support your points with relevant example, fact, or specific cases. Now let's move on showing result connectives. These connectives are used to show the result or concept of an action, event, or situation. They help explain what happens because sometimes that has already been mentioned. In simple words, they show a cause and effect relationship between two ideas. Some common result connectives are, as a result, consequently, therefore, thus, hence, so. Let's look at the example. Many people rely heavily on private vehicle for transportation. As a result, traffic congestion has become a major problem in many cities. In this example, the first sentence describes the cause. Many people use private vehicles. The second sentence shows the result, increasing traffic congestion. The connectives as a result clearly link these two ideas together. You could also use therefore, consequently, or thus to express the same relationship. These connectives are extremely useful in IELTS writing because many essay topics require you to discuss causes, effects, problem, and solution. Using result connectivities help make this relationship clear and logical. Now look at the group 7 inferring. These connectives are used when we want to draw a conclusion, clarifying an idea, or talk about what is likely to happen based on what has already been said. In simple terms, they help us explain the meaning of statement or show the possible consequences of a situation. Some common inferring connectives are, in other words, in that case, then, otherwise, or else. Let's look at our first example. People need to reduce their energy consumption. In other words, they should avoid wasting electricity and use resources more effectively. Here, the phrase "in other words" restates the first idea in a clearer and the more specific way. It helps the reader understand exactly what reducing energy consumption means. Now, let's look at the another example. Students should submit their assignments before the deadline, otherwise, they may lose marks. In the sentence, otherwise show the consequences of not following the advice. If students do not submit their work on time, they may face a penalty. These connectives are useful in IELTS writing because they help you explain ideas more clearly and make logical connecting between your points. Next is giving alternative connectives. These connectives are used when you want to present a different option, viewpoint, or possibilities. They help you show that there is more than one way to think about an issue or more than one choice that can be made. These connectives are particularly useful when discussing different opinions, advantages and disadvantages, or possible solution to a problem. Some common alternative connectives are alternatively, on the other hand, then again. Let's look at our first example. Some people prefer to live in a larger cities because of the job opportunities. On the other hand, others choose to live in a rural area for a quieter and more peaceful lifestyle. Here, on the other hand, introduce a different viewpoint. The first idea focuses on the benefit of the city life, while the second presents an alternative preference. Now let's look at the another example. Students can study at the traditional university. Alternatively, they can choose to take online courses from home. In this sentence, alternatively introduce another option that student can consider. These connectivities help create a balanced arguments and show the examiner that you can discuss multiple perspectives rather than focusing on only one side of the issue. A useful tip is to use on the other hand when comparing two contrasting viewpoints, and alternatively when you suggest another choice or situation. This will make your writing more logical and well structured. Next is restating connectives. These connectives are used when you want to express the same idea in a different way. Usually they are used to make statement clearer, simpler, or easier for the reader to understand. Sometimes an idea may sound complex or too general. Restating connectives help us explain that idea more clearly without changing its meaning. Some common restating connectives are "in other words," that is to say, to put it simply. Let's look at our first example. Many companies are adopted flexible working arrangements. In other words, employees are no longer required to work from the office every day. Here the phrase "in other words" introduces a simpler explanation of what flexible working arrangement means. Now let's look at the another example. The government needs to reduce its dependency on fossil fuel. To put it simply, it should invest more or renewable energy sources. In this example, to put it simply helps explain the main ideas in a more straightforward and easy to understand way. These connectives are more useful in IELTS writing because they allow you to clarify your arguments and ensure that your message is clear to the reader. Next is contrasting connectives. These connectives are used to show differences between two ideas. situation, or viewpoints. They help us compare things by highlighting how they are different rather than how they are similar. In IELTS writing, contrasting connectives are very useful when discussing opposing opinions, comparing advantages and disadvantages, or presenting two sides of an argument. Some common contrasting connectives are: conversely, in comparison, in contrast, instead, on the contrary, whereas, while. Let's look at our first example. Many people enjoy living in a large cities because of opportunity available. In contrast, others prefer small town because they offer more relaxed lifestyle. Here in contrast show the difference between the two preferences. One group prefers city life while another prefer life in a small town. Now let's look at the another example. Some students learn better through online classes whereas others benefit more from face-to-face teaching. In this sentence, whereas is used to compare two opposite learning preferences. These connectives help make your writing more balanced because they allow you to discuss different perspectives clearly and logically. Now let's look at the group 11, conceding connectives. These connectives are used when you want to acknowledge an opposing idea, a limitation, or an unexpected situation while still maintaining your main point. In simple terms, they help you to say, yes, this is true, but my main argument still stands. This is useful skill in IELTS writing because strong essays often consider different perspectives rather than presenting only one side of the argument. Some common conceding connectives are although, though, though, even if, however, nevertheless, nonetheless, despite this, in spite of this, still, yet, all the same, after all. Let's look at our first example. Although technology has improved communication, it has also reduced face-to-face interaction in many situations. Here, although reduce positive points about technology, but the writer then present a contrasting concern. Both sides are acknowledged, making the argument more balanced. Now let's look at another example. The project was expensive. Nevertheless, if the provided significant long-term benefits for the communities. In this sentence, nevertheless, show the despite of high cost, the project was still worthwhile because of its long-time benefits. These connectives help writers present balanced arguments and show that they have considered different aspects of the issue.